Welcome to the Create on Purpose podcast with Kimberly Michelle. Before we begin, I would like to ask you a question. Who is someone who became part of your life and somehow never really left? Maybe you haven't spoken to them in years. Maybe they're no longer living. Maybe you only knew them a short season, but somehow they're still part of who you are. I've been told more than once that I think too deeply, I feel too deeply, you're too emotional, you take life way too seriously. And you know what? Maybe that's true. But over the past few weeks, I've also realized something about myself. I don't remember everyone that I've met, but I do remember the people who left a part of themselves behind in my heart. Just a handful throughout my life. But when someone becomes a part of my story, they rarely, if ever, leave my heart. Before my dad died, he actually yelled at me. Not about money, not about my career, not because I wasn't working hard enough. He yelled at me because I hadn't reached out to a friend that I have known for 46 years. And we hadn't talked in almost a year since his diagnosis because it caused her to withdraw. At the time, I remember thinking, Dad, there are much bigger things for us to talk about right now. But after he passed away, those words would not leave me. You need to call her. Why was that so important to him? Out of everything he could have chosen to say near the end of his life, why that? And then something happened a few days ago. A message appeared in my inbox from someone I haven't heard from in decades, over 30 years. We were 16 when we knew each other. His message wasn't long. He remembered a makeout session, the music that we used to listen to, and he hoped that I was still singing. I asked him how life had been, and his response was only 3 words. Life is strange. That's all. No explanation, no story, just life is strange. And somehow those 3 words stayed with me. Not because I wished my life had turned out differently. I would be a completely different person if my life had gone any other way. But the words reminded me that every single one of us carries invisible versions of our lives. The life that we lived and the lives that we almost lived. That person that we almost married, the city that we almost moved to, the job we almost took, the friendship that we thought was going to last forever. Every decision opens one door while quietly closing thousands of others. At the same time, I found myself grieving another friendship. There was never a fight, no dramatic ending, no distance. For the longest time, I've been asking myself, what did I do wrong? Why is this friendship feeling this way? And then I realized maybe I was asking the wrong question. Because whether or not that friendship lasted forever or not, that friendship changed me. This couple lived with extraordinary generosity. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. They talked about making the world better, about giving back, about using success to improve the lives of other people. Every single conversation with them made me think a little bigger about what my life could be. Not about having more, but about becoming more. It's probably a huge part of the reason why I am where I'm at right now doing this. And they probably have absolutely no idea that they did that. They probably thought we were just talking. But years later, I am still thinking about all those little seeds that they planted. And it made me wonder, how many people have quietly built us without ever even knowing it? A teacher, a neighbor, a coach, a friend, someone on the internet, just giving us advice, posting some stupid meme. Someone who simply lived in a way that made us believe a different kind of life was possible. Maybe that's why my dad was so passionate about friendships. Maybe he understood something that I am still in the process of learning. Relationships aren't valuable because they last forever. They're valuable because they leave fingerprints on us. Some fingerprints stay for a season, and others stay for an entire lifetime. But they all become part of our story. I've spent a lot of time wondering why certain people stay in my heart. Probably way too much time because I'm an overthinker. And maybe you have wondered that too. Maybe the answer isn't that we're meant to spend our whole lives together. Maybe the answer is so much more simple. Maybe they were meant to help shape who we become. Soul contracts, so to speak. A few short weeks ago, after my dad passed away, another friend sent me a message that has just stayed with me. And I wish I could read it word for word, but it's copyrighted. I can't. But the gist of it was this. Grief doesn't disappear because someone mattered. Love leaves marks. And the deeper that we love, the deeper those marks become. First, they ache constantly. And over time, they hurt less often. But maybe that's exactly as it should be. Because those marks remind us that our lives were changed by another human being. Maybe friendships are the same. Maybe the people that we miss, the people we still think about, the people who suddenly come to mind when a certain song plays, or there's a smell in the air, or a message appears unexpectedly. Maybe they're reminders, not of what we lost, but of what we were given. So today I want to leave you with a different question. So instead of asking, who left? Ask, who built me? Who challenged you? Who believed in you? Who expanded your vision of what your life could become? Who quietly changed the direction of your life without ever even realizing it? And if they're still here, tell them. Don't assume that people are always going to know. Don't assume there's always going to be another opportunity. Because one day, you may realize, just as my dad tried to teach me, that relationships aren't interruptions to our life. They are life. Thank you for joining me today on the Create on Purpose podcast. If this episode spoke to you, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Tell us who someone was that became part of your story, and what part of them are you still carrying today? If someone came to mind while you were listening, don't let this episode end here. Send them a message, make the phone call, tell them what they meant to you while you still can. And if you believe conversations like this matter, I would be honored if you would subscribe, share this episode with someone you care about, and help us build a community that values connection in a world that often moves too fast. Because you never know. The episode you share today may be exactly what someone else needed to hear. Until next time, keep creating on purpose.